Gary Busey's bankruptcy papers included one short line that made lawyers pause in disbelief. Under his list of possessions, it said he owned old VHS tapes, tambourines, and tapes rotting away inside a storage unit. That was it. After more than 40 years in entertainment, those forgotten items were all that remained. He owed hundreds of thousands of dollars, including a massive debt to the IRS alone. But the debt itself was not the most shocking part. What stunned everyone was how long it had taken to build up and why it happened. Court records showed unpaid bills going all the way back to 1988, the same year something occurred that permanently changed his brain. What began that year slowly destroyed his money, his career, and much of his personal life. Gary Busey was born on June 29, 1944, in Goose Creek, Texas, a small town near the Gulf Coast where life moved slowly and money was always scarce. His father, Delmer, worked on construction machines, keeping them running day after day. His mother, Sadie, managed the home and kept the family together. Their house was simple and had no luxuries, but it was full of strict rules, daily chores, and the kind of toughness many Texas families had after the war. Gary grew up sharing clothes with his siblings and learning very early that nothing in life would be handed to him easily. When Gary was 4 years old, the family moved to Varna, another quiet Texas town surrounded by open fields and the sound of passing trains. Every evening, the radio filled the house with music. That simple routine taught Gary independence long before he ever knew what acting was. Music entered his life before he even understood what music truly meant. By the age of 4, he was already tapping rhythms on pots and pans, copying the beats he heard from singers like Hank Williams and Elvis Presley on the radio. He used spoons, bowls, tabletops, anything he could reach, turning the house into his personal drum set. His mother noticed that he could keep rhythm better than most adults and allowed him to make noise whenever he wanted. By the time he was 5, he could copy entire songs using only kitchen tools. In 1952, his father managed to save $15 to buy him a used drum set. Gary played it every single day until the drum skins tore apart. Those early years created a hunger inside him that never disappeared. In 1953, when Gary was 9 years old, the family moved again, this time to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa was alive with sound. Jazz, blues, country, rockabilly, and swing all mixed together in the city's air. Places like Kane's Ballroom made music feel alive and powerful. Gary spent hours in record stores, holding vinyl records, reading liner notes, and dreaming of a future far bigger than the sidewalks of Tulsa. By the age of 12, he was playing drums in a garage band with friends. They practiced until their fingers hurt and neighbors begged them to stop. Gary later said Tulsa was where his musical soul truly woke up and where he first understood what performing felt like. School, however, was a struggle. At Bell Junior High, Gary had trouble focusing in class. Reading bored him, math frustrated him, and his report cards reflected that. But when lunch breaks arrived, he came alive. He jumped onto tables, performed short skits, told jokes, and pulled classmates into quick plays he made up on the spot. Teachers remembered how he used cardboard scraps to create costumes and props just to put on a 5-minute performance in the hallway. In 1959, he joined the school's speech club, and it became obvious that he had a natural spark that did not belong inside a quiet classroom. Many people said he was born to perform. By the time he reached Nathan Hale High School, that spark had grown into wild energy. Gary was unpredictable, funny, and impossible to ignore. At a 1961 talent show, he appeared dressed like a rock and roll star, wearing a leather jacket, a fake pompadour wig, and sunglasses painted onto his face. He danced through Elvis and Buddy Holly songs until the entire auditorium laughed and cheered. His classmates loved him for it and called him the funniest and most unpredictable guy in school. In his senior year in 1962, he was voted most likely to succeed in entertainment. Everyone could already see the path he was heading toward. After graduating, Gary went to Coffeyville Community College in Kansas on a partial football scholarship. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing nearly 220 pounds, he looked perfect for a defensive lineman. But everything changed in the fall of 1962 when he watched a campus production of the musical Oklahoma. Something clicked inside him. Performing felt more natural and exciting than football ever had. He joined theater classes, auditioned for plays, and landed a role in The Boyfriend even though he had no formal acting experience. His wild personality made coaches question whether football had ever truly been his calling. In 1963, Gary transferred to Pittsburgh State University on a full football scholarship. He played 10 games and recorded 17 tackles during his first season. Then, on October 19, 1963, his life split into 2 parts. While tackling a running back during a game, he tore his ACL and damaged his meniscus. His football career ended right there on the field. After 2 surgeries and months of painful recovery, he turned fully toward acting. In early 1964, he joined the drama club and took his first acting class in February. By spring, he landed a role in The Glass Menagerie. The stage immediately felt like home. His performance as Tom Wingfield shocked the campus. A professor described his style as wild and raw, pulling the audience into every word he spoke. The play ran for 3 nights and broke student ticket sales records. A local newspaper called it the most intense acting the school had ever seen. For the first time, Gary felt that his strong emotions finally had a place to go. Offers from regional theatre groups followed, and his future became clear. In 1965, he moved to Oklahoma State University to study theatre. He maintained a solid GPA, took improved classes, performed in plays, and worked odd jobs to survive. But in 1966, just 1 credit short of graduating, he dropped out. He left college to chase professional work in Tulsa. He played drums in a band for small pay and appeared in local commercials, including a car dealership ad that became popular. Gary believed a degree would never bring him happiness. He wanted creativity, freedom, and unpredictability. During his college years, Gary also worked night shifts at a gas station. On November 3, 1963, 2 masked men entered with guns and demanded money. Gary gave them the cash, but one robber hit him in the face with a gun, leaving a permanent scar above his left eyebrow. The local newspaper reported the robbery the next day. Gary later said that moment taught him what real fear felt like. He carried that fear and intensity into his acting, and the scar became part of his on-screen presence. By the mid-1960s, Gary focused fully on drumming. He joined a Tulsa band and performed under a stage name, playing in smoky bars filled with loud crowds and chaos. In 1965, the band was chosen to open for the Beatles in Dallas. The pay was small, but the experience was unforgettable. The energy of the crowd felt overwhelming, like a wave crashing over him. Even though the band never became famous, that night showed him how big the entertainment world could be. In 1967, Gary played drums for Leon Russell during recording sessions. The pay was modest, but the experience and connections were priceless. He spent long hours in the studio, learning everything he could. One of the songs recorded during that time later became a classic covered by major artists. Although few people knew it, Gary's drumming was part of the original recording, and it meant everything to him. From 1969 to 1970, Gary took his wild stage persona to local television, appearing on a late-night show filled with comedy, music, and strange characters. He performed live, made mistakes, and learned how to adapt quickly. That unpredictability became a key part of who he was as a performer. In 1970, he toured with well-known musicians, playing percussion and performing across Texas and Oklahoma. He saw both the beauty and the darkness of the music industry. Backstage arguments and fights over money showed him that talent alone did not always lead to success. Those experiences pushed him to think about changing his path. Everything shifted in 1971 during a performance in Nashville when a fight broke out between musicians. Gary was stabbed and rushed to the hospital. After weeks of recovery, he realized he could not continue living that way. He left the music scene behind and moved to Los Angeles to focus on acting. His acting career began with rough, intense roles. He performed his own stunts, took real risks, and brought raw energy to every performance. Directors noticed his fearlessness, even when it made him difficult to control. He moved from biker films to westerns and then to serious dramatic roles, showing a range few expected. In one major television film, he played a frightened soldier facing execution. His performance felt so real that viewers believed they were watching genuine fear. Overnight, he became a familiar face across America. From there, he moved into action comedies, dramatic films, and high-risk stunt roles, often injuring himself but refusing to slow down. As his fame grew, so did his reputation for chaos. He was thrilling to watch but difficult to manage. People admired his energy but feared his unpredictability. Over time, injuries, personal struggles, and one life-changing incident in the late 1980s began to take their toll. Years later, all of that history led to a single bankruptcy document. The fame, the money, the applause, and the wild ride had faded. What remained were old tapes, forgotten instruments, and unpaid bills reaching back decades. Gary Busey's story became a powerful reminder that talent and passion can take someone to incredible heights, but without stability and care, they can also lead to a long and painful fall. The extras in the film were not actors at all. They were real prison inmates, and the fear on their faces was completely genuine. Nothing about it looked staged. Even the director later said that watching Gary perform felt like witnessing a real crime happening right in front of the cameras. That role proved something important. His reckless energy was not only useful for dangerous stunts. He could bring the same raw intensity into emotional scenes as well, and it made people uncomfortable in a powerful way. Years later, when he was cast as Buddy Holly, his dedication reached another level. He lost more than 30 pounds to match Buddy's thin frame. He shaved his hairline to copy Buddy's look and even spent time living with Buddy Holly's parents so he could understand their son better. He practiced guitar every day, forcing himself to play left-handed the way Buddy did, even when his fingers started bleeding. Once he put on Buddy's glasses, he refused to take them off until filming was finished. That level of commitment made the performance feel almost hauntingly real. In 1979, he became the first actor ever nominated for Best Actor for playing a real rock musician. He was up against major stars like Jon Voight, Warren Beatty, and Dennis Christopher, yet he held his own. He did not win the Oscar, but he made history just by being nominated. Critics pointed to moments like his emotional breakdown during the song Every Day, where he sang with real feeling drawn from his own deep love of music. That year, the National Society of Film Critics named him Best Actor, and the Los Angeles Film Critics honored him with their New Generation Award. To celebrate, he organized a massive Buddy Holly tribute concert in Tulsa. About 5,000 people showed up to watch him recreate Buddy's moves on stage. It was both a tribute and a statement that he had crossed into music and film history at the same time. However, the deep method acting came at a cost. He stayed in character even when the cameras were off. He ate the same food Buddy ate, used the same accent, and refused to touch right-hand instruments. He isolated himself to copy Buddy's loneliness and emotional struggles. The exhaustion pushed him into emotional breakdowns during filming. Even the director admitted that Gary looked completely drained almost every day. Still, that pain sharpened the performance and gave the film an emotional depth that few biopics could match. After that success, Broadway offered him a musical role based on Buddy Holly. He turned it down because he wanted to focus on films. That decision led to arguments with people he had worked closely with, including disagreements over script changes. The tension nearly damaged his career. Word spread through Hollywood that he was too intense, too unpredictable, and too unwilling to compromise. Yet that same stubborn fire continued to drive him forward. In 1987, he shocked audiences again when he played Mr. Joshua in Lethal Weapon. During the final fight scene, he headbutted Mel Gibson so hard that Gibson's nose broke. It was not planned. The blood was real. The director kept the shot in the film because it captured the real danger Gary brought to the screen. The movie went on to make more than $120 million worldwide, and audiences could not stop talking about the villain who felt terrifyingly real. In Point Break, he played the unhinged surfer Pappas. He jumped out of planes without proper training because he wanted everything to feel authentic. He delivered his lines in a way that unsettled the other actors. Keanu Reeves later said he felt genuinely uncomfortable during rehearsals. The director allowed Gary to improvise because his unpredictability added tension to every scene. Even today, people still talk about his wild performance in that film. In Predator 2, he played Agent Keys and insisted on performing most of his violent death scene himself. He spent hours in heavy makeup and prosthetics and argued with the director about making the scene more dramatic. Although the movie earned around $37 million, his short but intense appearance became one of the moments fans remembered most. On television, he shocked viewers once again in The Hitchhiker in 1987. He played a deeply disturbed radio DJ and poured real radio slang and manic energy into a long monologue. One of his co-actors quit during filming because the performance was so intense. The scene was filmed in a single take. He won a Cable ACE award for it, and many people called it one of the most disturbing performances they had ever seen on television. In 1992, he appeared in Under Siege. He studied real bomb manuals and filled his scenes with complex technical language that even the film's advisors struggled to follow. His scenes with Steven Seagal felt tense because Gary treated every moment as if it were real. The film made more than $156 million worldwide, and his performance stood out as one of its strongest elements. Then came the night that changed everything. On December 4, 1988, Gary was riding his Honda motorcycle through Los Angeles at around 40 miles per hour after a long night of partying. He was not wearing a helmet. In a sudden moment, the bike slipped, and he was thrown head-first into a concrete curb. The impact crushed his skull in 3 places and knocked him unconscious instantly. People nearby rushed to call for help as he lay bleeding on the street. At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, doctors saw that his brain was swelling rapidly. Blood was filling areas where it should not be. His frontal and temporal lobes were badly damaged, and his blood pressure dropped so low that surgeons feared he would not survive the night. The next few hours were critical. No one could say whether he would ever wake up again. The surgery was extreme but necessary. Doctors removed a large portion of his skull to relieve the pressure on his brain. After the operation, they placed him in a medically induced coma that lasted 3 weeks. His family sat by his side as doctors explained the grim odds. He had only a 10% chance of surviving because of the severe blood loss and brain damage. Machines kept him alive while the room stayed painfully quiet. When he finally woke up, he could barely speak or move. His family was shocked by how weak he looked. The surgery saved his life, but it permanently changed him. His recovery became a long and exhausting battle. His face was partially paralyzed, and his speech was slow and uneven. He spent 1.5 years in rehabilitation, learning how to walk again, how to talk again, and how to live with a brain that no longer worked the same way. Those closest to him noticed deep changes. He became impulsive and unpredictable. His judgment was no longer reliable. Doctors explained that the part of his brain responsible for behavior control and decision-making had been crushed in the crash. Friends agreed that the man they knew before December 4, 1988, was never fully the same again. During this painful period, he decided to sue Honda for millions of dollars, claiming the motorcycle's brakes caused the accident. The case went to court in 1990, but the judge ruled that the crash was caused by his own choices. He had been speeding, wearing no helmet, and there was no mechanical failure. When he lost the case, his financial problems became even worse. Medical bills piled up, work became harder to find, and legal fees drained what money he had left. He was forced to return to acting before his mind and body were fully ready because he needed the income to survive. The stress pushed his already fragile mental state even further. The accident was no longer just a physical injury. It began to consume his career, his finances, and his personal life. In the years that followed, he lived with constant pain in his head and neck. To cope, he relied on strong prescription medications. Over time, those pills turned into addiction. The drugs that were meant to help him function slowly changed his behavior. He began having sudden outbursts on film sets, shocking cast and crew members. By the early 2000s, his financial situation collapsed completely. He filed for bankruptcy, owing around $450,000. His personal life fell apart, and his professional reputation suffered badly. Many people whispered that the accident had taken away the man he once was. One night in 1988 had created consequences that followed him for the rest of his life. On May 3, 1995, he nearly died again. That night, at his home in Malibu, he overdosed on cocaine and GHB, coming dangerously close to the end once more. His fiancée found him unconscious and immediately called emergency services. Paramedics rushed him to Santa Monica Hospital Medical Center, where he stayed for several days. While he was recovering, prosecutors filed felony charges against him for possession of cocaine, psilocybin, marijuana, and for being under the influence. He was later released after posting a $10,000 bail. Afterward, he spoke openly about his drug use and said cocaine was the devil he kept dancing with. He described the overdose as a wake-up call that pushed him into rehab for the first time in his life. Sadly, even that did not stop the cycle. He relapsed again and again, worrying friends whenever he made strange late-night phone calls or acted paranoid and fearful. 3 years later, in 1998, his situation became even more troubling. He got into a serious argument with his ex-wife, Judy Hyson, over custody of their son, Jake. The fight grew heated, and in a moment of anger, he threw a telephone at her, causing injury. Police arrested him and charged him with spousal abuse. The case ended with a plea deal that required him to attend anger management classes. People close to him blamed the outburst on his old brain injury, while others believed his temper had always existed beneath the surface. Fans who once admired him were shocked by how far his life seemed to have fallen. By 2003, he appeared on television again, but not in the way anyone expected. Comedy Central aired a reality show called I'm with Busey, where writer Adam de la Pena followed him around, hoping to learn from his unusual personality. Around 1.2 million viewers tuned in to watch his unpredictable behavior. He spoke in strange phrases he called Buseyisms, saying things like fear being a darkroom where the devil develops his negatives. What viewers saw on screen was wild, but behind the scenes, things were even more chaotic. He argued with producers, clashed with Adam, and even got into a physical fight over how the show was filmed. Most scenes were made up on the spot, leading to moments where he cooked roadkill, talked to a wax figure, or pushed Adam into dangerous situations. The show became a cult favorite, but it also revealed just how unstable and unpredictable he had become. In 2008, he joined the show Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. He claimed he was there to help others, not because he needed treatment himself. However, it quickly became clear that he was struggling deeply. Dr. Drew explained that his brain injury had damaged the mental filters that help people control their impulses. Busey admitted that he had blacked out during film shoots in the past, including during Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, because of heavy drug use. Over time, he became more honest and agreed to take medication to help stabilize his mood. For the first time in years, people around him saw a small sign of hope. That hope did not last long. In 2010, while filming Piranha 3D, he suddenly kicked his co-star Paul Shea in the stomach without warning. He claimed it was part of method acting. The crew saw something different. They saw a man whose brain injury and addictions had pushed him to a point where he sometimes lost control. Paul Shea later joked about the incident, but it showed how fragile Busey's behavior had become under pressure. By February 6, 2012, his financial life collapsed completely. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Los Angeles. Court records showed he had less than $50,000 in assets and between $500,000 and $1 million in debt. The IRS alone claimed he owed over $450,000 in unpaid taxes dating back to the late 1990s. He owned no real estate, and his remaining assets were minimal. Years of reckless spending, poor financial decisions, and overwhelming medical bills had finally pulled him under. His manager described the bankruptcy as a fresh start, but it was impossible to ignore how far he had fallen from the height of his fame in the 1980s. His medical expenses were crushing. UCLA Medical Center billed him around $100,000 for treatments related to his 1988 brain injury. Storage companies demanded another $20,000 for unpaid fees tied to old props and belongings from his career. VHS tapes, tambourines, and old recordings sat forgotten in a warehouse. These items once represented his life in Hollywood. Now they were painful reminders of what he had lost. He officially emerged from bankruptcy in February 2013 with only about $26,000 in assets. Some debts were cleared, but the massive IRS bill remained. To survive, he took whatever work he could find. He did voice acting for video games like Grand Theft Auto, appeared on reality TV shows, and accepted roles in low-budget films. Anything that paid enough to keep him going was worth considering. The constant stress led to more relapses, and his strange behavior became more noticeable. No matter how hard he tried, the weight of his past followed him everywhere. One of the most memorable moments from this period happened in 2012, when cameras caught him dancing in a courthouse parking lot during his bankruptcy proceedings. He joked to reporters that bankruptcy was like General Motors, a fresh start. He smiled, laughed, and appeared carefree, but later admitted that behind the scenes, the stress was overwhelming him. That moment showed the split inside him, a loud public image hiding deep private fear. Despite everything, he continued working. Between 2011 and 2013, he appeared on seasons 4 and 6 of Celebrity Apprentice. He was fired both times, yet he returned with the same strange charm and high energy. He donated his prize money to charity and spoke openly about debts he had accumulated from failed business deals in the early 2000s. The show kept him visible to the public, but it also revealed how desperate he was to stay financially afloat. One of the darkest chapters of his later life came in August 2022 at Monster Mania Con in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Several women accused him of inappropriate touching during photo sessions. Complaints quickly followed, and police charged him with multiple offenses, including criminal sexual contact and harassment. He was removed from the event immediately. In interviews, he denied the accusations and said the interactions lasted only seconds. However, videos of his confused police interviews spread online, adding to the controversy. The case dragged on for years and finally ended in August 2025 when he pleaded guilty to one count of fourth-degree criminal sexual contact. The remaining charges were dropped. On September 18, 2025, a judge sentenced him to 2 years of probation and a $500 fine. His lawyer pointed to the severe brain injury he suffered in 1988 and early signs of dementia. Despite this, the court ruled that probation was necessary. He appeared in court by video, spoke very little, and was ordered to provide a DNA sample and avoid all contact with the victim. It marked the end of a long legal battle that kept him under intense public scrutiny. Through all these struggles, He continued lending his voice to the Hitman video game series between 2006 and 2016. Players loved the rough, gravelly sound of his voice, which came directly from the damage caused by his brain injury. That permanent rasp gave the character a dark and unpredictable edge. Game producers said his spontaneous delivery made scenes feel raw and dangerous, and fans agreed that his voice became a lasting part of the franchise. In October 2019, he returned to live theater, stepping onto an off-Broadway stage in New York to play God in the play Only Human. The show ran from early October 2019 to January 2020. His performance surprised audiences, especially his improvised monologues. Some lines felt less like acting and more like personal confessions. His real struggles, addictions, regrets, and search for meaning gave the role a strange honesty. Audiences could feel that truth, and for a moment, it reminded people of the powerful performer he once was, still fighting to make sense of a life shaped by talent, chaos, and consequences.